Hey, Crystal,
Hello.
what is darkness?
The absence of light?
Whoa. So you can't even,
You
sorry,
can't even.
you can't even define darkness without talking about light? That's strange.
Yeah, it's actually one of the few things that you can't define without its opposite, which is pertaining to
Well,
what we're going to talk about today.
yes, I have noticed that NE users really don't understand things without understanding what things are not. Would you agree with that?
Well, at least for me as an NFP, that's pretty true. I mean, most of the time when someone tells me a fact, I have to, I would say, contextualize it, which is why it seems like we have to know the opposite because contexts usually have opposites in them. So yeah, I would say NE needs to know the full up and down, left and right duality of a picture to fully get its meaning.
Because do you distrust just what is said about something? You want to like take it apart or look at it from different angles or
Yes, like I view what is said versus what I experience as opposites, and only if they form a complete picture together do I accept what is, if that makes sense.
So anyway, the point of this video, hi, welcome to Synchronic Saturdays with Meghan and Crystal. For those of you who don't know, I'm an ENFJ and Crystal is an ENFP. And we are going to, after our last video about extroverted intuition and what it is, I was getting pretty frustrated because I didn't know quite how to explain it. Because what I realize is that what my NI likes to do whenever I'm explaining things is I like to hit the nail on the head, get right in there and say, this is what this is. And as I was going through that, I was like, I don't really know if that's how NE likes to process things. And it kept becoming more and more clear that I don't really think that NE could understand what NE is unless you also know what NE is not. And
Yes.
what NE is not is different than SE because SE is a thing. And the absence of NE is what we're talking about here. We're not talking about NE versus SE. We're talking about the absence of NE. Does that make sense, or do you think I'm on the right path, Crystal?
Well, I guess as an NE user, I would say that SE is the absence of NE personally, because I feel like it's impossible to just not have anything. But I do
Yes.
get that, like, trying to directly contrast them in a more direct context might be what we're going for here. Although I personally wouldn't see a difference between SE and like
Well,
lack of
because there's
NE.
not a difference in practice, but the difference is in what we're talking about.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. See, I only think of it in practice. I don't think of like,
So if we were talking about dark and light, darkness is the absence of light. And so there you could say, oh, we're talking about what it's like to not have light versus, oh, we're talking about light. Does that make sense?
or yeah, that makes sense. Or what it's like to not have light as opposed to just darkness is what you probably mean.
Yeah, I sure hope I'm not confusing people by giving my little NI explanation for what we're doing. I guess we can
It reminds me of how absence of fear does not equate to the presence of love. It just means there's no fear or something. There's like a kind of in between almost.
Yeah. Well, okay. Because I guess what I'm trying to explain here is that when we talk about SPs, for example, you might say that extroverted sensing is really present and focused or whatever you want to say. But that is not showing, that description shows nothing about what it's like to not have NE. And we talked
Mhm.
about this with this ESFP lady that was going to be one of my clients. You were pointing out all of the ways that she had bad NE or she didn't have NE or the absence of NE.
Yeah, I see
I
what you
wanted
mean.
to talk about that or if there was anything that you've noticed from me. And so this episode's going to be a little different from some of our other episodes because in other episodes, I have tried to just, let's say everything we can about this function in this episode. But yeah, so what are your thoughts?
I guess my thoughts are like, I personally didn't understand SE even existing until I was able to, in practice, spot in SE users how confused they would be if I said something, or how much their brains aren't like me, and could then say, my brain's like this, their brain's like that. Oh, so that's what it's like. Because, yeah, like, reading just a description online of what SE is does not tell you anything about like I think some people also still conceptualize that you can have one function, like if you're an F user, you're FI plus, or if you're an N user, you're like NI plus, and that's like not really how it works. So for me, like, observing, especially in SPs
And when
and
you say
NJs.
plus, I just want to say we're not talking about the socionics. We're not talking about like the socionics, like positive or negatives. We're talking about when Crystal says FI plus, what she's saying is that a lot of FI users, when they look at FE, they think that it's like you can have your cake and eat it too. Like you already have the FI and now you're expressing it with FE, when really each function comes with its own strengths and deficiencies. Is that what
Yeah,
you're
like, yeah, like FE doesn't have FI naturally, and FI doesn't have FE naturally. Like it's like, if you see that function, it doesn't have what you already have, even if it's like this, even if you're both feelers, you're both sensors, or both intuitives, you don't have what the other person does if it's a different orientation.
Yeah,
So
and I just was imagining, because okay, this is what I naturally do whenever I'm making videos, is as a FE dominant, the entire time I'm talking, I'm imagining what the comments are going to be, or what the general reaction is going to be, or what people are going to be thinking about or feeling. And after our last video, I have a feeling that a lot of people who already understand functions found it really enjoyable, but people that don't know for sure, or maybe they probably are an NE user that thinks that they use NE, but they don't know, and we're watching it just to see if they use NE. I would imagine that that video would leave them confused, because they might be thinking, well, I do this sometimes. But if we explain what it's like for the people that don't have NE, then it might be easier for NE users to be like, oh, well, that's not me. I hate when people do that.
yeah, but then again, we're gonna have to really depend on you here, because as someone who uses NE, it's really hard for me to imagine what it's like to not use NE.
Yes.
But we can
I
try.
think I can help you, because I mean, you've been annoyed with me for not using NE before.
Multiple times.
Yeah. What's like one that comes to your head?
I don't have any because it happens so often. That's the thing. But like, it's like in my SI by now that Meghan does not use NE.
Okay, so let's say we are fighting about something, or let's say we are messaging and both of us are having a bad day and I need your help. And I'm just texting you over and over because I like either want your attention or I want to talk about something. Like, what do I do that anyone with NE would not do?
Yeah, I mean, even for SJs, I think sometimes if I give like a cue of like, hey, like, can't talk right now, they'll sometimes take it as like, don't want to talk right now, and not like try and make it happen. Like, I feel like SE, as we talked about in the last video, it has like assertiveness to it. Like, one of the things that NPs were talking about in the comments were how SE isn't afraid to take up space, and it can almost seem kind of like rude. I feel like I notice a lack of NE when I try to like give a cue of like, oh, like, don't really have the energy to do this right now. And even an SF and even an SFJ will like know to like kind of back off. But I feel like when an S user wants their way, they will like force their way like in. And I feel like NE users like definitely
It's almost like
don't
you
feel
throw
that.
out an idea, or you give like a breadcrumb of a potential idea that you hope would trigger someone to be like, oh, what if Crystal's this? And I don't pick up on that.
Yes, pretty much. And I feel like, you know, even like an NTJ who doesn't have the same issues as an FE user with being needy, if they like see like a vision of they want their way, they're gonna like force it through. And the difference between an unhealthy NP who just is being selfish is the S user might not even know that they're being pushy. Like, I think the biggest thing with lack of NE is when you're told you're being pushy or being assertive or being too much, and like you don't even realize it. And I feel like a lot of NPs don't struggle with that. Like, I've never been accused of being too much, even though ironically it's one of my worst fears. Even if I'm called intense, I don't get accused of taking up too much like space in interactions. And it's like, I feel like a lot of S users, if they're in an interaction and they have that one friend that's always like, ugh, like, stop being like so in my face, then that's definitely a sign that you have like SE and such.
So an example that I thought of is that there was this lady who, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we talked about this and I thought is interesting. And it's hard for me to even know what bad NE looks like because, like, since NE is my demonstrative function in socionics, I'm comfortable with it. I do use it. And so I might not be the best example of someone with really, really bad NE because I can use it if I need to. But like most of the time,
I see in you mostly like you don't want to use it, and and even an unhealthy NP, they'll like use it on accident if they like are trying not to. So
yeah, but there's this lady who I believe is an ESFP who I was going to. Well, there are two things. One, I was gonna maybe do freelance social media for her, and I told her my rate. My hourly rate. And then we didn't end up working together. I took a job doing marketing, like managing the marketing for a company. And then 6 months later, she asked my rate again and it went up. And she was really confused by that. Like, oh, sorry, I thought that it was this. And that was, I think, an example maybe of any NE user. And this isn't NI looking into the future predicting. This is like SE being caught in their own world. Anyone with NE would have assumed that your rate might have gone up after time.
yeah, I think like NE, and I've noticed this with my ASTP friends too. Like NE, if something changes in their like perception, aka like your rate goes up because of unforeseen events, they won't be as like caught off guard or surprised.
It's because NE expects the unexpected.
Yeah, we expect the unexpected. I think SE users, they always say flow with the moment, but all they have is the moment. They can't predict other moments. So she only had the previous moment as a reference point when she last talked to you, and she didn't really know to think about the fact that time has gone on and a lot of things could have changed for you, and so would be like more surprised and annoyed at like the intuitive possibilities coming in and moving your rates along and such.
Yes, and I think
that was a good explanation.
I think that SE dominance, so people that have the absolute worst NE, are so heads down doing things in their life that they might not I'm not talking about FE here of other people, but they might not realize that the situation changes because they're so focused on their life and what's in front of them that they aren't thinking about, oh, well, that might no longer be there. That might no longer be there. Like this sort of
yeah. And any users are always like, even if they don't want things to not be there, they won't be that surprised. Like they might be still like, if she was an NE user, I feel like she would have still been like, oh, her rates went up, but not been like, what? Like confused about it. Any user were like, ugh.
And she wasn't being mean to me at that instance, but I could tell she was extremely rattled. And almost
which is so weird to me. Like, why would you not know that time has gone on?
And almost tried to force, like, well, you said this. Like,
yeah, and SE users also really, really hold you up to your word of, you said this though, were you like lying? And like, they don't have the SI to like rewrite, maybe they misperceived something at times. And NE is always prepared to account for having misperceived something, even if they don't like it. That's also something.
Yeah, and I think, I can get like this sometimes where like I put a lot of pressure on myself to be super clear. Like, for example, my life coaching rates have changed. There was a point when I was doing them on a donation basis and now I have a set rate. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to be clear. And so I sort of make that be my responsibility to show that. And it seemed like this ESFP was like, almost like, well, you didn't make that clear. Like almost like accusing me of not putting something in the SE.
Yeah, when really their NE didn't account for, like, it was clear at the time. It just wasn't clear. It, like, what were you supposed to do? Like, update her as your rates were changing or something?
Yeah, and I think that NE sort of is aware and knows that not everything is going to be spelled out for you.
Yes, NE super takes responsibility for guessing between the lines. And
Yes.
SE users do not want to if they don't have to. Like, SE will basically wait for things to be spelled out for you.
Yes.
NE will feel the pressure to jump the gun and guess in advance what someone's thinking, what someone wants, what someone feels, and, like, cater to that.
Yes.
And this is different than, like, an NJ just being considerate of the collective. Like, I think an MP would just be able to, like, map out every single scenario, like, in a fucking choose your adventure way, and NJs can only, I don't know, what do NJs do? Because, like, I can see why someone would be confused as to how that sounds like being a J if you're thinking of all the potentials.
So, the difference between an NJ and an SP in this scenario is that I don't take SE for granted the way that an SP might. I, like, am hyper focused on making sure. I forget what you said, and so my answer is not very clear.
Well, I was trying to say that, like, NE users don't take responsibility for things being spelled out for them before they act or assume or anything. They always try to beat reality to the punch and anticipate.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking how some people might think that that is an NJ trait to be envisioning, like, the consequences of something, but it's not, because
it's not.
So what is?
Okay, so this is, okay, for those of you watching, this is what's interesting about if you can grab a friend that uses the different functions from you. Like, Crystal and I were like, you're watching us learn in real time, and so, like, be patient with us, because I'm not an ENFP, and so I don't know 100% how her brain works. But, okay, so you're saying that you imagine what reality could be before it happens, and you want to sort of guess what that might be to beat it to the punch. Because something I've noticed from you is that you always get really upset with yourself if something happens that you didn't predict. And I'll be like, well, you had no way of knowing that. And you sometimes don't know the line between the things that you had no way of knowing and the things that you should have known. And you always try and know all of it.
That's me, definitely. And it's not that it confuses me when something that I didn't predict happens. I never feel confused, per se, because I can look back with the SI and piece together what I missed. I'll just be mad that I didn't piece it together faster before. So.
Yeah, like, NE wants to piece together reality and make an educated guess, like, at all times. And so you can see.
And it's reflexive. It's not even consciously. So an NE user just will notice themselves rewriting a narrative from before of what happened before, and use that maybe to map out what will happen later. And that's,
and you can see the opposite in this ESFP. And I know this might seem like a silly example. I just know she is an ESFP from a later story that maybe I could say. But this little example shows that she was not trying to piece together the reality. She was waiting for me to say it. And she was almost mad at reality for changing, because SE wants to be on top of its reality. Like, it's not going to take the time or the mental energy to try and piece it all together.
So you said SE is on top of its reality, but I just said NE wants to beat reality to the punch. We should differentiate.
Okay, so the difference is that SE wants to be so perceptive in reality that it knows and controls what is going on in its reality, that it's not trying to figure it out. It's trying to participate in it by moving it and changing it.
Yeah, like, more like doers who will, like, be forceful, and if something happens that doesn't add up to their reality, they'll push until it makes sense with what they're kind of latent inferior whatever. And I was thinking,
yeah, like the way that this ESFP was dealing with it, as opposed to being like, oh, I was wrong, trying to repiece, oh, well, maybe Meghan changed her prices because she has gained, like, this much experience or something. Like, NE would be trying to, like, think it through, like have the gears.
Yeah, I would not put the responsibility on the other person to explain what happened differently.
Or an SE dominant might spend absolute zero time trying to piece it together and instead force you to explain, like give me an explanation for why that is.
Yeah, and like this even annoys me with NJs because I'll be like, I need this is this, and it's not even like they'll be like, but why? And like I'll have to like figure out how I wasn't clear enough and like basically guess, and it always ends up being me who's the person who's trying to like piece together why they're confused and then tell them the part that probably confused them to clarify. And I get mad that they never try to clarify what they're confused about because half the time they don't fucking
know. SE is not going to be in their brain piecing together things. They're going to try and figure it out by interacting with you or interacting or moving or shifting the real world.
They're going to be like, what do you mean?
Yes, yes. I'm going to go fill up this cup. So does it bother you whenever people don't take the time? Do you feel like it's considerate to try and have people mentally massage? I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like think through what you might think through.
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's rude for them to expect you to say it how it is? Because
honestly, yeah, I do. And I mean, it's now that I know that SE exists, I don't think it's rude, like they're doing it on purpose to be spiteful anymore. But it's just really inconvenient for me because I feel like I'm doing the intuitive labor of trying to guess where you're at and trying to like help you figure it out.
That's the perfect word, because NI is intuitive, but NI reflects on what it sees. NI is not doing the intuitive labor trying to figure out what it might see.
I feel like I'm responsible for everyone's reality, so I always try to be clear, not just about where I'm coming from, but sometimes I'll be more focused on where other people are coming from and like explain and use their pieces with my reality to figure out what we both see and then tell them why what they see is wrong or right or blah blah blah. And it reminds me of how FE users will try to like be like, oh, you feel this is this, and try to help you with that. And I feel like I have to like help someone get their lens correct all the time. And SE will just like sit back and like wait for me to do it. And I'm just like, well, what if I just didn't say anything? Then they would still be asking me why I'm not being clear the whole time. And that's fucking annoying.
Yeah, and I think a common theme you could see here is that every extroverted function is active in some way, no matter what function it is, because it's directly engaging with the sphere or the plane of. So if intuition was a plane of reality, then NE would be jumping all over the place, being like, ooh, what is intuitive reality? Like, I'm going to spend all the time and all the energy and everything trying to figure out, meaning or whatever you would want to say. Where NI would be not doing that and just like watching and just like perceiving it.
And I like waits for the meaning to fade into place and expects like the universe to give them the meaning. I think NE goes out and seeks it.
Oh, that actually is funny where Dan, shout out to Dan if you're watching this, INTP, was telling me that I should try and come up with, and maybe I'm misperceiving it a little bit, but this was just my perception, was trying to get me to come up with a system to type people. And he was, I think, trying to get me to engage NE to try and decide how is the best way to type people. And my NI is like, well, I don't know the best way to type people yet. Like, I'm almost like waiting for reality to reveal it.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent to like when FE users tell me to go out and find someone to date to figure out what I want or figure out what works for me. And my FI is like, or I could just fucking wait here for someone to pop up and be the one. Like, fuck you.
I literally like, and that's the thing is like, I'll say things like, oh, I want to write a book one day. Oh, I want to come up with my own system for typing people, my own 16 type descriptions. And E might be like, well, what are you doing to do that? I'm not brainstorming about it. I'm just living my life. And the more I live my life, the more those things reveal itself to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. And E like gathers info. And like, I think, and I just kind kind of waits for it to be handed to it, but it works because it does get handed to it. I feel like every end user would be like, I cannot conceive of a perception being handed to me. It's very different than like sitting here and reflecting on everything you've ever seen too. Because I think NE users, the equivalent to them sitting down, bitch, is like they like sit and they reflect on everything they've ever seen and they piece together something. But NI will just be like, oh, idea injection or something.
Well, that's the thing, is that I think that NI, it doesn't just pop into us. It's SE, it's that gives it to us. It's like our actions and our experience and our life in the sensory world that gives it to us. How do you view your sensory things? Like, do you feel like experiences just happen to you? They do.
What do you mean?
Like, okay, I mean, all of your little internships and like journalism stuff, to me, it feels like they land on your plate, and they don't. It's your NE intuitive labor that gets them to you, but you don't SE to be like, I'm going to force my way to the top networking. You just are NE, and that's what gives you the SI. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like like perceptions are handed to NI users, and NE has to like go out and like sync them all into their brains. And like SI, I mean, I don't know. I guess I like with experiences, I don't feel like they were like handed to me per se. I don't know. I guess it's
so that's the thing. It's like my intuitive perceptions weren't necessarily handed to me because I spend a lot of time and energy on them, just not in the way that NE would do it.
Yeah, I think SE just like goes like,
and you deserve everything you've gotten. And I know I wasn't trying to say that you didn't. You're more deserving of the things you've gotten than most people I know. I just don't think that you went in there and forced your way to the top the way that some people did.
I mean, I get okay. So like to me, SE is like they're really loud and like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And like kind of force reality to do its thing. And I'm just kind of like looks at what's flowing, and I kind of just jump on different conveyor belts until I get to where I want to be. And that's like the image that comes to my head. And like SE is like, ugh, like I'm gonna like just like my staying power is gonna get me what I want. And NJs have a lot of that, but they're definitely not like they're not like super NJs aren't the super brainstormers or whatever. They're the people that like take all the stuff that NE has generated with intuitive labor and organize it to be the most clear, concise perception. But NE is the one that throws all the ideas out there in the first place and like based on what they see. So I think that's an important distinction. But I mean, not every NP is going to be creative. Not every NJ is just going to be like sitting back and like kind of lazing around, obviously. But I don't know how else to explain it. Like
it reminds me of what I said in my Facebook group once. Which, if you aren't in my Facebook group, you should join. Link below. Reminds me of whenever I asked everyone, like, what is your perception of low-hanging fruit? Because something I've noticed in the workplace is that a lot of SE and NI users will want to, well, why don't we just go after this? It's low-hanging fruit. We'll do that. We'll learn from that, and then we can do something else.
And he thinks it's like beneath it, literally, because it's low-hanging.
Yeah, and NE wants to me, sometimes it seems like NE wants to make it difficult. We
don't want to make it difficult. We just want it to be better than just settling for whatever reality gives us. We want an even better, we want an elevation. So
yeah, you like want to like do something wacky. I don't know.
Yeah, it reminds me of how, as an FI user, a parallel is like I'll see FE users just like gossip, and I'll be like, why are you like wasting your time and making it so hard? Why, like when you're like trying to analyze why people don't like you or something. As an FI user, I'm just like, well, some people do, some people don't, like whatever. But then FE is like, but then I can really understand how I influence the world and then like improve it or whatever.
Well, for me,
like, and even TPs do that to an extent. Like, I don't really care about analyzing why things
are. Whenever I go after low-hanging fruit, what that means to me is I've observed all of this, and this is the obvious answer that nobody's really doing. Like, why are we not doing it? Because we've been distracted. We better grab it now.
I can't think of an example where I like grab low hanging fruit.
Well, here's an example. A low hanging fruit for me is that I should offer some sort of typing service or some sort of thing to help the people that come to me and ask me what their type is. That is it. I think that's low hanging fruit in the sense that it's obvious. Why am I not doing it? Like, to me, those are the things it's like stands out to me. Like, why don't you do this? This is the obvious answer that the world is almost pushing at you.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think maybe we're getting a little off topic. Hopefully this was still interesting. Or am I off topic? I don't know.
I don't think so. I've like this whole time we've been like adding facets to this idea.
Okay.
And I'm like, there isn't like one specific idea that's just going to click it into place. So everything we say is productive to that. Well, then what's an equivalent to, I guess NE doesn't like low-hanging fruit because we always can see how it could be better. So we're not going to go for just that. We're going to like cook it longer, I guess, is what I think.
Yeah. SE likes low-hanging fruit because it's low effort, maximum reward. And you can learn from it and then make it better the next time.
Yeah, I think SE is like, it will go for the obvious thing because I always think SE users state the obvious, and I'm just like, are you trying to be interesting here? And I expect them to be like using that to generate more NE, and then they'll kind of just stop and like, oh, okay. Also, something I thought of is like, I think SE users will know right away that they're not NE users, but NE users might spend forever thinking that they could be not NE if they're not.
Well, I think a lot of NJs think that they might use NE because they relate to being creative and all those things that you hear on the basic description. But I think if you really know what NE is, then NJs are probably annoyed with NE in their actual everyday.
Yeah, it's life. Like how I can employ FE to be really like nice and like warm and like blah blah blah, but like FE annoys me more often than not, to be honest. When I get into the depth of what it depends on to get its input, I'm like, I'm not like that.
Like, that's even like right now, I feel like this is a very NE rambly conversation, and I don't know if you could tell that I'm kind of on edge because like I'm really wanting it to make sense to everyone, and I keep worrying that, because wouldn't you say that we're almost doing like intuitive labor on NE right now?
Yeah, but that's almost kind of the point, because if we just say what is, it's not going to get the point across.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's like however much I look down as an FI, like equivalent, because, you know, NI is the introverted function, NE is the extroverted function. And equivalent is my introverted, extroverted kind of counterpart thing. FI and FE is, I'll always be like, FE users, you're fucking like doing too much and wasting your time. But at the same time, they get results that even benefit me. So I have to accept that their way is, you know, works out for everyone. So you have to accept right now that like this NE ramble is productive, because even for an SE user watching it, to hear the extent to which NE, you know, is, if they even care about like learning about the functions, they should just sit through this. Like, I'm just like, whatever, like get over it. Like, and also an NP will be like, oh, this is kind of weird to think that people do that. Like the SE and it's important for them.
I just thought of another example of bad NE from an ESTP CEO that I know, who he wanted to make it look like for a board meeting that social media was growing. And he said, okay, go find the stats to show that my social media is growing. Didn't understand that week by week it's going to look different. And they had to be like, it's not growing. And he's like, well, find it. And there was this long, if you go from the beginning of time of engagement, the graph looks like this. And they didn't accept that. They were like, well, I know that we're growing overall, so find a way to show. And this ESFJ and E user was like, well, that's not reality. You can't make it look like that.
That's so NE, yeah.
And I mean, even me as an NJ, like, I mean, I am familiar with social media. I know I wouldn't make that mistake because I'm not personally ignorant to how those things work and how marketing works. But that's an example of SE being kind of forceful, and I don't know. Is that?
I mean, that makes sense to me because as an NE user, I would have been like, oh, well, if we can't say we're growing, then we can say something else about what we're doing because the stats aren't showing that.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
And SE is like, it must be somewhere that we're growing. And that's like weird to me because isn't SE so focused on reality? Like, why is that so unrealistic then? How can we interpret that?
But you would agree that if someone did that to you, like as a journalist, if they told you, go find the stats that show that our paper's growing. I don't care what it is. Just show that we're growing. I just want to show growth.
Yeah, I would be like, we're not growing though, so sorry. Here, like you can find it, you can try to fabricate it, but no.
And that might be
and I would like look down at them for not being creative enough to work with what we fucking got. So
this was an ESTP who I think knew, and the NI, that over time we're doing the right things, we're investing, we're on the right path, but might not have realized that what you could see now isn't necessarily showing that, and
it's
force
it. Yeah, and those and I will get like really like frazzled if it has a feeling, but the feeling hasn't like shown up in the real world yet, and that like annoys the fuck out of me because I'm like, well, wait, because it will show up eventually, but it's not going to show up in this very literal moment. It's like they don't trust SI. It's like almost like SI to be like, over time it'll pop up, but we don't know when. And I is like, if I feel it now, it should be here now.
And like, if an NE user wanted to show growth to a meeting and they threw out the idea, oh, I wonder what social media shows, they wouldn't be like, I don't care if you can't find it, find it. NE would like try and get creative to find something else to show, and SE would double down on the force.
Yeah, and that's one thing. And E doesn't double down, and E never says, I don't care if you can't. I've never in my life heard any user say those words, because that's like being rude, I think, to the current fluidity of reality. It's like, if you can't, then we're going to have to just move on to a different moment. And SE will just kind of like force its hand. And so just like really annoying. And like, I think an NJ who's like maybe like, oh, am I using any or SE? It's like when you're stressed, you're gonna be like, I don't care, I can't. Like, and like basically to me, it sounds like whining. Honestly,
my suggestion to solve that problem, it was like an ESFJ, and I'm trying to be discreet because I'm not wanting to like give away who these people are. Not that anyone cares, but like the ESFJ was trying to solve this problem, had the NE to be confused and scared by the force of, you have to find this. And my solution to fight SE with SE I was like, well, take a screenshot of this graph and show it to them and be like, this is reality.
To like show how ridiculous it is?
Yes, because you can only fight SE with SE, sort of like, the NE was trying to get creative. I don't know if this is even making sense. I have another example that I think might make more sense. It's from the same ESFP woman that I mentioned before. This person gave me a contract that I did not want to sign because it wasn't fair, and it was a non-compete for 2 years, even though they were only promising me a month of work. And I was like, I'm not going to sign this. I can't do that. And I didn't get a response I asked this woman, will you change the contract for me? And then I didn't get a response for 2 weeks. And then that Monday morning, we were supposed to have a call. And right before the call, I was giving her the benefit of the doubt, seeing if she was going to respond. But right before the call, I let her know I wasn't going to work with her anymore because I needed to move on to other things, and I wasn't going to work without a contract. And she pretty much was caught completely off guard by that, freaked out. And I don't know if you would like to take it away and explain this, Crystal, but you were pretty much explaining to me how that was bad NE. because they were like, well, I was busy. Like, how dare you do this to me? I was busy. And
oh God, yeah, it's so bratty. Like, it's like SE will be so focused on what's going on with it that it will like expect the whole world to like, it looks like to us when we're like, SE is rude, and they expect the whole world to like bend over to their will just because they want something. And to me, that was what this woman was doing, because it's like, oh my God, how dare you move on? It's like she forgets that all the possibilities of other opportunities you could be taking or other things you could be doing, while she was just here wasting your time for
it's
2
almost
weeks.
like the SI moving parts that they don't get as well.
Yeah, I think it is that, because it's like all the details of, well, this was never as secure as you initially might have mistakenly thought so, because you're an S user who's like entitled to the moment. But all you have now is the moment. You can't control the future or the past, is how it looks like to me, to be really harsh. And
yeah.
so
Or sorry, let me compare how I reacted and what an NJ does, and then I want you to continue on this rant because I think it's good. But like for me, when I reacted, I wasn't like, oh, stupid lady, how dare you, the way that Crystal might. But for me, I was like, oh my gosh, should I have been more clear? Should I have waited? Like, what was I not?
Yeah, that's like an example
enough?
of SE and SE, and like NE would have been like, wow, I'm so bored of you throwing the stupid temper tantrum because you weren't perceptive enough to keep up with the NE that, hello, I have other things to fucking do too. And like SI would have also like quantified, it's been 2 weeks, lady, like seriously, you really expect me to be waiting around for you? Like, unless there's proof that I am that kind of person, or that you asked me to stay, then fuck no. And you wouldn't have been as clear on, there was some expectation you weren't aware of.
And
When
the
to NE,
reason
it's
why
like, it would have been clear to me.
the reason why I, as an NJ, would never pull this stunt on someone the way that this SP did to me is because my NI is so wanting to be prepared for the moment that
which is still different than an NP though, right?
yeah, it's different than how NE will. I think NE is cool with going with the moment and interpreting as they go along, but I'm so aware of the fact that I don't know what's coming next and that I'm going to have to work with it in the SE.
And you have no way of imagining what could be coming next the way an NP would. An NP would specifically think the words, she could go get other opportunities. And you're like, I don't know. Might not even be alive tomorrow. So
see, I would be focused on, I wouldn't be using any, if I was in the ESFP woman's shoes and I had a client or whatever, I wouldn't be using NE to wonder if they had other possibilities. I would be like, I need to be doing what I can to secure this partnership with us so that I get what I want. I wouldn't be thinking about what else could happen. I would be trying to control the SE and be like, hey, are we still working together? Are we still like, and that's where like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Can be very like intense.
I would say, like, for me as an E user, I never like focus on securing no matter what. I like only secure something I NE perceive could be in flux. But if it's like, hey, I'll wait for you to give me the go before I go do that, like I'll like take that into account. Like I'll like look at the degree to which it could be in flux.
In flux is a really good word, and I feel like NE almost always knows that something is in flux.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they're paying attention, that is. And if they're not going to be like pissy about it and like assertive, like, well, you said this, like basically trying to force someone into doing something that they want. I feel like any users never like try to force anyone to do something, or never get accused of forcing anyone to do something, because I think even an innocent little INJ might not think they're forcing anyone, but then get accused of it because their SE pops up when they're stressed. And E doesn't have any SE like anger or loudness pop up when it's stressed, honestly.
Yeah, this lady, whenever after that happened, like, even though, as opposed to just figuring out the NE of how to interpret the moment and moving on, she tried to double down on the force by sending me an email, calling me poor and desperate, and like just like being mean.
And
it's like, oh, if I can't get what I want anymore, then I'm gonna at least force my will onto you one last time, because it makes you feel better for SE, it makes them feel better for not being able to interpret the NE of what's going on, to just dismiss that from their reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. NE never doubles down the way S users do. I think what SEPs do is they try to make you feel bad about yourself if, like, it's to double down. I don't think NJs ever try to do that. They don't get super defensive. They just kind of like observe and then like slowly say like some things. But I feel like SPs can be just so bratty and like overly forceful. And that's like when I kind of know that they are SPs, because they'll be rubbing me the wrong way, or like, I think NJs will try to not rub people the wrong way, but when they're stressed can do it the same way as SPs.
Yeah.
And it is the whole like grabbing reality by the horns and trying to make this specific moment fit, as opposed to NE would be like, if I lose the battle of this moment, I'll have still like won the war.
And
of
to
like
be clear,
more moments.
SPs aren't bratty. They aren't any more bratty than NPs. But I do think that SPs get very frustrated by NE. They don't know how to interpret the moment as it's coming. And
they only interpret the one now, but the ones to come later might be shaped by SI than C, so they could be confused sometimes.
I would say, Crystal, would you say that the SPs in your life have gotten mad at you because they were confused by you?
Oh yeah. And like whenever they're mad, I literally just turn off and I'm like, you were supposed to fucking figure it out.
As opposed to giving the benefit of the doubt or trying to understand the possibilities, an SP will just, they think that what they're seeing is like NI, and they'll think that you're just dumb. They'll think you're wrong.
Yeah, I've never been called dumb by them, because usually for an SP,
they wouldn't say that. But I mean, like, for example, as opposed to seeing the possibilities of why you might be that way, they would rather use NI to be like, well, this is my way, and then your way is wrong to my, like, NI.
Yeah, like my way is wrong because it's not understandable to my NI, and that's just ugh. But for example, my ESTP friend, he crossed a lot of boundaries with me, and then crossed a major big one, and I was just like, we're not friends anymore. And he was
would you mind sharing the anecdote of that? Or
I could, but I don't really know how to explain it in a way that makes sense to both SE and NE, so maybe you could share it.
Okay.
Because you can use both.
So an ESTP guy, they were close friends. They talked a lot. And
what? An ENFP and ESTP could be friends? Weird.
Classic ESTP male problem is assuming, and this is kind of a male whatever.
ESTPs struggle with it more. Personal experience.
Not understanding that intimacy and emotions doesn't mean that the person is sexually attracted to you. Took a lot of what she was saying the wrong way, and like was trying to, I don't know, he crossed sexual boundaries is what he did.
Not like literally. So like what happened was we like went on a trip.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
We went, because I was like, you made it sound like he like assaulted me or something.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, but so we like went on a trip together. We slept in the same room but in different beds. And then after a while, we were just there, and I could tell something was kind of off because he was being really quiet. And he just like was like, I'm not saying we should, but like it's weird to me to sleep in the same room with a girl and have nothing happen. And I'm just like, are you saying that you like expect me to happen? He's like, no, I'm not saying I expect it. And then our NE and SE and TIFI started clashing really hard because like we both were like, what the fuck? Like, you're accusing me of this and you're accusing me of this. He's like, I'm not a rapist. I'm like, I'm not saying you're a rapist, but you're like accusing me of like leading you on and like blah blah blah, and like it became this like huge thing. And then we decided to just
SE wants to force its will little by little.
Yeah,
like this ISTP that I dated, like I was not interested in him, and he thought it was like a game to try and force his way in little by little to try and like get me. And it was like,
it's like SE thinks, well, just because you don't like me now doesn't mean you can't like me later. And NE is like,
and I even kind of am like that sometimes.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, you'll be trying to like get my attention. I'm just like, I'm fucking busy, and like ignore. Like, I think it's like SE and FE being like, well, there's good vibes here, and there's the moment here. We can work with it. And my FI is like, it's kind of set that if they feel that way, I'm not going to kind of change it. But anyways, this ESTP guy, like, we got in that fight, and then we like tried to drop it, and then later, like, I sent him like a picture of me because I was like, oh, so this look good, because I would just do that with friends. And he like took it as like, you say like you don't want me, but I see it in your eyes that you do. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he was like, it just hurts me that like you don't want to be close to me. And like, you sent me this picture, like, what does that mean? And I'm just like, and any user would like maybe think those things, maybe, but never be so confrontational and like have the audacity.
Like, oh, I see it in your eyes, you're lying, like that sort of like,
yeah, like, what the fuck, I would never say that shit. And I was just like, did you just get that from a movie or something? Fuck you. But I was just like, look, just because I think you're objectively attractive does not mean I want to fuck you. And he's like, that's so weird. You're like so like repressed or something. I'm like, I am repressed, which is why sex with us would not even be fun. And it'd also be a big fucking mistake. He's like, you don't know that. And I'm just like, you know, it'd be fun. And like, it was just, we could not get on the same page.
I don't know why I didn't even think to bring up this certain ISTP, this story, because ISTPs have blind spot NE, is that he forced his way into dating me even though we never met, just to like be past the sexual boundaries, like force that. And then whenever I said no, it was like, okay, we're friends. But at the back of his mind the entire time was, how can I force that boundary again?
It's so interesting.
As opposed to NE, like, I wonder what possibilities Meghan would have for that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as an end user, sometimes I'm so afraid of the possibilities that I don't even try to check if they're real or not. And SE will just think nothing else is real but what I see. And I'm like, nothing is real that I see but everything else.
Yeah, and SE could be so limited where they don't, okay, so SE, they don't own their SI experiences as their own experience the way that NPs do, so that they might not even realize when their own experience is limiting them. Like, this guy in particular thought, you're my soulmate, we have the strongest connection ever, I've never felt this way with anyone, you're the only one that,
because he can't conceptualize it with anyone else and has not had it before. So he
yeah,
thinks,
and I was like, we get along really well, but I've known so many people before that I've had this sort of connection with, and I hated to be that person.
Burst your bubble.
But like, I was just like, no offense, but talk to more people.
Oh my God, honestly, so relatable.
I think that this is the best story, honestly, to explain it. I just have not wanted to go there because I didn't want to be mean, but he was not able to view the possibilities. He was so heartbroken by me that he thought that's all that there was. But then I kept being friends with him, and I kept giving him another chance to be friends. But I knew that at the back of his mind, he could not view me as a friend.
It's so funny because your SE was saying, well, we can be friends now. And like, my NE was like, I can never trust you again.
And to be fair, I've done that with my exes. Like, to be fair, with my NTP exes, they didn't give me a clear enough no, and I thought there was a possibility, and I was like, knew they loved me or whatever, and so I just kept talking to them.
You were trying to force it. Yeah, it's funny because like, only when that happened with you in the STP did you have empathy for how your NTP exes must have felt when it was this whole, let's be friends, haha, I know you love me, and I'm gonna maybe be advantageous. And I saw through that shit too, and I'm just like, bitch, like, this is why it's not working. Like,
wait, I think that's probably why my INTP ex was really pissed at me. Well, I never like made any advances, but like, I just wanted him to either tell me that you don't like me or tell me you like me. Like, I mean, I just wanted him to say. But then, okay, being in that situation with the ISTP where I was like, I don't feel the spark enough. So I have felt spark before. I don't want to invest in something I don't feel the spark in. That, like, he didn't have like the NE to imagine more possibilities. He thought this was the most compatible there was, and thought that because I didn't not like it. Like I had some feelings, but they were like so small compared to feelings that I've had for other people that I didn't want to settle. And I had to say that over and over. But I think his SE was like, no, you like me, you're lying, because he picked up on the little bit that I did.
Yeah, SE, whenever something doesn't add up, it always assumes you were lying. And I like never assume people were lying. I just assume that I misperceived what they maybe said that was perfectly clear. And SE, if it wasn't clear to them, they'll go, you were the dishonest one. And I fucking hate it when they do that.
Is this for
like,
SE? Like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's like, it's your fault for being too dumb to pick it up, versus I always try to go out of my way to assume I'm the dumb one to like figure out what I could have missed if I misperceived something, and SE will just like kind of wait for it. Like I said earlier, it's just like the most arrogant thing. I just fucking hate it.
So is this where SE is unable to expand the boundaries of what they see?
Yes.
I'm realizing now that I really don't know that many ISFPs, and I wish I did.
Oh, well, I know several ISFPs, and every time, it's funny because every time I get in a power struggle with an SP, I always feel like, I always come away with a weird feeling that I came out on top because I didn't let them control me, and I've never really thought of it that way. It's always been like, it's like they'll accuse me of something, and usually it's pretty bad NE. Like, for example, the ESTP guy was like, oh, like, you, like, lied to me. You don't care about me. And I'm like, I actually do care about you. You're just too stupid to, like, realize it. And he got so mad because I literally said those words. Because even though I'm not an S user, my NE and SI will pick up that you are trying to control me right now. Fuck you. That's not going to work. And I will just literally, like, be, like, poker face unbreakable. He'd be like, you don't have any emotion. Oh, my God, you're so cold. I'm like, you don't deserve it right now, bitch. Like, and then
that reminds me of Omar's video, which maybe I'll link below, about the way that
no, I cut people off when they're SE users and they're disrespecting my NE, and I have tried so hard to respect, I guess, what is their NI that they don't care about. But I also had this ISFP girl who she just randomly, because I was like, hey, we haven't hung out in a while, she was like, oh, well, I think you're really cool and like blah, blah, blah. But like, I just think that we're not compatible as friends. And I'm just like, bitch, we haven't hung out in like months. Like, I mean, yeah, but like, why are you being so dramatic about it? And then I was just like, I get it. Like, I don't think badly of you if you've been flaky, because a lot of people in LA are like that. And then she was like, how dare you insult LA? How would you feel if I came to Portland and insulted your hometown? Which my NE was like, okay, first of all, I fucking hate my hometown, so I would like love it if you did. Second of all, I didn't even insult your hometown because I love it here and I'm flaky too. And then she didn't respond. And then I was just like, look, like, you can go your separate ways. Like, I don't want to burn bridges either, like you said. But like, it's just one of those things where like I knew that she was just saying things to like pity me or like feel sorry for me, to go, like, it was just so obvious to me. And like, as an NE user, I was like pitying them.
SE needs things to be said out loud, like, hey, we're growing apart, and you're just like, duh.
Yeah, I am. And it's almost like insulting my intelligence. Like, did you not think so? And yeah, or they'll accuse me
on Tinder, where like I have been like, hey, it's been nice chatting with you for these few days, but I don't see a relationship. They've probably been like, okay, duh.
Yeah, like my NE and SI are like, it's my SI. My SI is like, you're jumping the gun here. Like, we haven't hung out in a while, and where did you even think that I was mad about that? Like, because I was just like, I don't know if you think I'm like needy or something. She's like, no, I don't think you're needy. I'm like, well, you wouldn't have said that if I wasn't needy. And then she couldn't say, no, I wouldn't have, because her NE can't come up with a different possibility or something. Oh God, it's just thinking about SPs. I think that whenever they're in the moment, they're so fun, but when they get into like maybe existential angst or depression, they can't get themselves out of it because they can't use NE to imagine anything but this moment now. It just annoys the fuck out of me. Because
it reminds me, or sorry, go ahead. I keep interrupting.
It annoys the fuck out of me because SE, when it's depressed, it'll like just drop in the hole and not be able to come out. It has no SI to think about. It can't use SI to recall when things were better to persuade themselves to come out for the possibility of things getting better. Like, I think as opposed to that, NPs will be depressed because there's too much possibility of what meaning could be, and they'll feel like gaslighted. But SE is just, there is nothing, and they can't like create it.
Yes, you're so right. Well, I was going to also share that this other ISTP I dated for 2 months, like a few days before we broke up, I was like, because he was starting his own business, and I was busy with stuff, and things were starting to get busy, and I was like, hey, like I'd like to know, like, how often do you want to hang out? Like, what works best for your schedule? I was like, I just don't want to be an afterthought if we are deciding that we would like to invest into each other. Like, I want your business to be number one. I don't care about that. I just, like, if I can at least be at the bottom of the priority, I want to know, like, how much you want to invest in this. And then he told me, like, whoa, like, you saying that really made me think about things. Like, I wasn't thinking about that before, which I think, like, any user would be thinking about those things maybe before.
Yeah, they would have.
But that was, like, completely caught him off guard. And then he broke up with me because he realized that he doesn't have the time to invest, and that it wasn't fair for me. And that, and like, I, like, totally was fine with that. Like, it was, like, the most amicable breakup ever, because I was like, yeah, you're honest. That's great. Like, I mean, we were just, that's what I think is cool. If you are, like, in a relationship with your dual, they're probably going to, like, appreciate the way that you communicate, because he was like, thanks for saying that. That was, like, really blew my mind. And I was like, it did.
Yeah, it's really funny because in a parallel way, without SE, like I like my dual too right now, or not my dual actually. Well, anyways,
wait, so pause before you move on to that though. Like, I can tell you're kind of judging that behavior from the ISTP. Like,
yeah, I am.
Like, do you expect people to think about things, or, like, what's that like as any?
I mean, it's been a real trip trying to undo that expectation, but yeah, I expect people to, like, always be critically thinking about their perceptions the way an any user does, like critically thinking about it, like consciously.
So people might be confused between that and, like, the thinking function in Myers-Briggs or whatever.
Okay,
so.
critically assessing. How about that? Because it's not
intuitive labor.
Yeah, like I'm always like, what do I see? What do they see? What does everyone around me see? And it's not the same as, like, what does everyone around me experience, which I think is what an S user would do. I can, like, generate, like, 1,500 different things that people could be, like, you know, like, experience, like, thinking just generally, maybe not from moment to moment, but just, like, generally. So I can always track where I'm at with someone in the relationship. So whenever something bad happens, I can be like, huh? And look back and be like, oh yeah, in my mental notes, it said that this could probably happen.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, I guess with this ISTP, what it is that he didn't even consider the possibility that as he works on his business, he's going to be more busy. What are the possibilities for, like, what our relationship would look like? Like, it's a lack of considering possibility that I see. That for me, I sometimes get distracted by the possibilities, and I want to narrow them down, and I want to turn them off, because that's what NE might look like in an NJ.
Do you think you would ever have struggled with the same thing if you were in that ICP's position? Like, do you think you would have also been, like, not sure? Or because I feel like you would have had halfway of an awareness with some NE.
I think I would have had an awareness, but I think SPs just go with the moment so much, where for him, he was like, oh yeah, like, this girl's hot, like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, whatever. Like, he wasn't thinking about, what is this going to become? What could
Maybe
this
it's also
be?
a J. It's almost like a J thing too, because I don't think I would have been able to take into consideration what's going on now with how busy I am. But that possibility in general is always just in there.
For me, I'm not so in the SE that I'm living. My NI is always trying to create the next SE. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but, like, for me, I'm so focused on where I'm going, my path, that I want to know how people are going to be aligned in my path. But I also, like, for example, like, our friendship changed whenever we used to be in college together to now we have to make an effort to talk, because you live in LA, I'm in the Midwest, like, our time, like, I can't just call you when I'm on my way home from work because you're at work. And, like, all of that changed. Like, I think I expected it to be the same, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I, like, wanted to talk to you. Now I'm gonna get sad. I, like, wanted to talk. Fuck. I wanted
to See, this is an example of SE getting caught in the moment, because it's
I
like
wanted
I
to
would have
talk
been
to
like,
you
I
the
don't want to
same
talk about things that
amount.
make me cry.
I wanted to talk to you the same amount, and I wanted you to pretend, like, to control your reality, to make it so that we can still talk the same.
I remember that, like, when you first graduated, it was like a really hard transition, because you get mad at me all the time for not having time, and I'm like, yeah, my life is just I like have my life flowing. I mean, I don't know.
And NPs, you always mourn transitions. Like, when during graduation, you were just like sad and cried all the time or whatever.
And then
I thought you would be the baby.
And everyone else wasn't crying, and now we're like, who's the baby now? I'm like, whatever.
But yeah,
NPs always get looked down on in the moment, but then they like come out the victor later.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess I knew that things were changing, but I thought I wanted you and other people to go with the NI of what their purpose and what their priority is, and shift the reality, like shape shift things to work for what we want. And I always sometimes perceive you not as trying hard enough to be there for me, and like moving over the obstacles that is present reality, where you would rather just go along with what reality is showing you.
Yeah. Okay, and like I probably have to like leave soon on that note, but one thing I did want to kind of say, which I don't have really time to get into, like my relationship with this like STJ guy, but it's like, I think one thing I've noticed about SE users is that if they get like an intuition, which SPs can too, because just because they have N doesn't mean they're intuitive. I think SE users get trapped in, if they see it going one way, they assume it will always be that way, and they get like really attached to that. Whereas I'm just like, whatever comes in my purview, cool. Like, I'm like really into, and I have a lot of FI about this one person I like right now, but I'm also kind of like, well, if the universe threw me another soulmate like tomorrow, I'd be like, okay, I'm in this reality now, cool, and just go with it.
I hate how people and things just like pass me by all the time. I can't ever keep up with it.
But you are keeping up with it, is what an NE user will tell you. I think it's just like in your head, it doesn't feel like it, but it is true. And I think SE users do a better job of it than they realize, because the moments to moments create a linear SI pattern. And NE just kind of always feels like it has to stay one step ahead of that problem. So, yeah, but what I was going to say is that for me, I like someone right now that I know has a lot of feelings for me, but I do not feel it is my right to try and force them to honor those feelings. And I think all the time when an SE user in that scenario would have doubled down more, because they would have felt that perception so strongly. Part of me is like,
I've even done the thing that the ESTP guy did to you with like random people. I'd be like, I know you want me. Why are you lying? Like, I've literally said that.
Yeah, it's funny because I was like,
only when I've been right though. I'm like not, I'm not like just confident. Like, only when I've been right.
Yeah, it's like funny because like there's this NFJ guy that like, yeah, like he was like, yeah, we want to hook up, and then like I tried to be forceful with SE and just push him into wanting it, and it actually worked. And I was like, oh, because I was just trying something different for the first time, because I didn't care enough about him to like care about losing him. But it ended up being like a turn on for him. Like, wow, you want me so bad that you're gonna like whine about it. I'm like, he didn't say whine, but in my mind it was like whining about it. I was just like, seriously, this is what it takes to get people to do what I want? Ugh, gross. Like, for me with SI, I'd much rather you just think to want to do it yourself. Like, I'm not gonna fucking force you to, which is how I feel about this person I like right now. But I'm like, I don't want to like fucking like even telling him how I feel in like a letter felt like so much. Like, I'm like, all right, now take that, and like you think about that. I'm just gonna go over here and like try to not like dwell on the fact that I did that, and ooh, that felt so pushy, you know. And you read the letter and you're like, that wasn't pushy, but I'm like, in my mind, trying to
the letter was her using SE and actually saying the reality for the first time.
Yeah, and I know, and I was just like cringing, and all I can do is like tell myself, but it's okay because he has more SE than me, so he's not going to be like, this is so much, like an INP word or something. But like in my mind, I was like, I can't believe I'm just being assertive right now And I'm like, the good thing is it was just an email. It wasn't like I handed him the letter or like yelled it to his face or anything. You can just read that on his phone.
I can't. I just not getting into that, but I literally cannot relate with this entire situation. I really can't relate. I would have just told the person how I felt months and months and months ago. I cannot.
Yeah, like
sending
we've been like two
that.
deltas have been like tiptoeing around it for like decades.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add about bad NE?
SE just reminds me of like, you step on the ants, you don't even realize the ants are there until it's too late, they're dead. NE users spend their lives tiptoeing around the ants, being afraid of the ants being, I don't know, reality, intuition, that intersection. And yeah, I think I
don't want any SE users to feel like we're bashing them, because this video is specifically talking about the flaws of you.
This video is for the audience of people to stop thinking that they're you, or you to stop thinking they're them or something. So, because I think that SUs are powerful. Like, I wish I had the balls they do.
I can sit here and talk to you all day long about how annoying bad NE is, but I also more regularly, and probably do, talk to SPs about how annoying NE is.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a given, but yeah, hopefully people realize that. But I also think no SE user would be like, what? And like need the opposite for that validation. Like, they don't probably think we're bashing them. They just think, ooh, I've never considered these ideas before.
I was actually saying that so that the NE users didn't get big heads.
Oh, too late. We already have them. There's no stopping that. That is what we will hang on to. All right.
Halloween decorated theme, nails.
Oh yeah. See.
Oh, wait, is that red or orange?
It's red.
Oh, never mind. So it's kind of Christmas.
No, it was actually supposed to be Halloween nails though, because it's spooky blood red.
Oh, you're so spooky.
Yeah, I'm so spooky. Also,
it's weird Scorpio rising.
This is called Plutonian Symphony, which Pluto rules Scorpio. So. But yeah.
Wait, I gave you that necklace.
Yeah, you did give me this necklace.
Ah, okay. I think
your SI is like, oh, sentimental. All right.
Okay.
Goodbye.
I hope that you understand the setbacks of not having NE, so that you NE users can, one, appreciate what you are, and that those of you that don't use NE, you can realize that that's not you. And also, like, I hope that you don't have too big of a head, and that we all realize that we all suck, we're all awesome. Like, just understanding the way that we work can really help us all appreciate the strengths.
Yeah, just remember,
don't feel too bad about your setbacks.
Yeah, the other person has functioned the way that you're afraid of functioning as, so you can learn from that.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.